But fundamentally what it will change is it will do away with competition in education. If we all have a common standard and we're all being tested to the common test, where's the innovation? Where's the incentive for a teacher to go out there and come up with a new curriculum and this grand new idea of teaching that will inspire children? Because it'll all be a common system, and we will have to meet the common metric that's been set by the federal government in order to get the funding that we want. And so again, it's all tied back to federal dollars. And so is this what we want for our kids, that we want to be the school that best meets the federal standard, or do we want to have innovative local control, and so that when a fabulous teacher who really is affecting your child's life comes up with a great program, we can take that to the district and say, hey, implement this? Because we won't have that freedom. We already do not have that freedom. That's the thing that the people of Idaho need to understand, is that it's here. We've adopted it. We have signed up for these agreements. This isn't something that may happen in the future. It is happening. It is going to be, the tests are going to be implemented starting in 2014, 2015. So what we need to do now is get in the ears and the faces of our legislators and say, get us out of this. We want our local control back. We don't want to be part of this big federal government-run system. And it isn't enough for Superintendent Luna and Governor Otter to say that it's state-led. They need to be able to prove that and show how we still have all of our sovereignty as a state. Because if you read the documents that we've signed, we absolutely do not have that sovereignty. We absolutely do not have the ability to make local decisions like we did before we signed these documents. And so they need to answer those questions. And it's just not enough anymore to come out and say, this is state-led, this is state-led. How is it state-led? Who in the state helped contribute to this? Which teachers, which parents? You know, and frankly, I would ask them, why don't you have more faith in the teachers and parents and citizens of Idaho, that we can come up with our own unique, great Idaho standards, and working in combination with states like Massachusetts and states like California and Texas that have had these great, a great track record of having high standards. Why wasn't that enough? Why do we have to have this whole new, expensive, untested program? I'm afraid that the answer to that question is in the other two mandates. We have another mandate that we have to meet with the federal government, and it's this, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
It's the system of assessments, which will ultimately allow a lot of control in the federal government over what ultimately is taught in the classroom. Because when you give up the right to set your standards, and you give up your right to proctor and write the test, then you give up your right over what is being taught in the classroom. And then third, that we have agreed, and we are currently developing and implementing a statewide longitudinal data system. So what does that mean? How is that different than what was happening a few years ago? We just got a grant in 2011 to finish the last aspect of our statewide longitudinal data system. And it's a system, in Idaho, I believe it's called the P/W system, and it means preschool through workforce. So we now have a system set up that will track our kids from preschool through the workforce. So, this system will track them on a personally identifiable way. In preparation for all of these different federal programs, the U.S. Department of Education executed a rule change it's a law called the FERPA law. That was the law that used to protect students and parents, and it kept our student records private. They changed the definition of terms in that law, and they stripped the parental consent portions of that law. So what does that now mean? It now means that we're going to have this huge database in Idaho that has all of these different points of data collected for your child. And prior to 2010, if any of that information was released, they had to come to me as a parent and say, is it okay if we give this information to this college? Or is it okay if this research group uses this information about your child? And we had to sign off on it. And if you were 18 and you could sign off on it as well. That is gone. That protection is gone. What does that mean? That means that all of this information that's being collected on all of your students in all of the different areas that we currently collect is now available for researchers. And it says specifically in the Idaho documents that we've signed that they intend on using it for research. They intend on allowing people to use it for, they mentioned specific stakeholders such as unions, business leaders, community leaders. And so this is now a huge pool, and you can see then why it makes sense that businesses would want to fund this and support the Common Core, because this is a gold mine of information that they can now use to market and to develop programs specifically to the very specific needs of our kids and have access to all of this information. So when Superintendent Luna says that we've always collected data in Idaho, yes, we have always collected data in Idaho, but we didn't take it down to the personal identifiable level. That's new and that's different. We have always sent data to the federal government, but we never did it on a personally identifiable basis. That is different. So when he says that things aren't different, it is different. Prior to 2010, we had protections in place with the FERPA law. Those protections are gone. These are some of the things that we need addressed. Answer those questions. Why did the law have to be changed? If there's nothing and the data isn't going to be used differently and there's no reason why, then how come we had to have a preschool through workforce added into the statewide longitudinal data system? So there's definitely some questions that need to be answered, and we really need to think about, is this what we want? And I think it from the aspect of a personal level. If my kids have any discipline problems at school, do we want that available for researchers, or do we want that protected? And as a parent, be able to say, no, I don't want that information out there. I don't want it as part of a study. I don't want it to go from state to state to state. And we had that protection. We no longer have that protection. And so I guess what I would say to Governor Otter and Superintendent Luna is, if this really is not, if all of our concerns are unfounded, then stand up side by side with us and explain to us how they are unfounded. And explain to us how the things that you've signed are not binding, and how we can get out of it, and how we do not owe the federal government all of these different mandates that we have signed up for. And if you can't answer that, then get us out of it, because we have a right to local education, and we have a right to be able to impact in a meaningful way what our children learn, and we don't want that right at the federal government. We will lose all power locally to affect change.